When Tolu walked through the gates of Crestwood Academy, she wasn't looking to make a statement. She just wanted to blend in. A new girl from Nigeria, quiet, observant, and unknown. But in a world where skin color still speaks louder than words, some students saw only what they wanted to see, a poor African girl who didn't belong. What they didn't know was who she truly was. Because the girl they mocked, the girl they tried to humiliate, was the daughter of one of Africa's most powerful men. And in time, she would shake the foundations of everything they thought they controlled. Tolu stepped off the plane, and the cool American air brushed against her skin. After the long flight from Nigeria, she felt exhausted, but more than that, she felt nervous. Everything around her seemed so big, so fast, so different. She had grown up in the grand presidential villa in Abuja, surrounded by luxury, bodyguards, and constant attention. Her father, President Bola Adiwale, was one of the most powerful men in Africa. Back home, she was respected, admired, and always protected. But here, in New York City, she was just another face in the crowd. As the black SUV weaved through the busy streets, Tolu pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching in awe. Towering skyscrapers stretched toward the sky. Yellow taxis honked impatiently. People rushed in every direction, their faces serious and focused. Neon billboards flashed bright lights across the streets, advertising everything from fashion to Broadway shows. This city never sleeps, she thought, her heart pounding with excitement. Her father had sent her to Crestwood Academy, an elite private school filled with the children of billionaires, politicians, and celebrities. She had heard stories about the luxury, the pressure, and the unspoken rules of power. But Tolu wasn't scared. She was the daughter of a president. She knew how to handle people like that, or so she thought. Before her first day, she had a few days to explore the city. In Central Park, she walked along the peaceful green paths, listening to the birds and watching children play. Then, she saw a group of street dancers performing on the sidewalk. Music blasted from a speaker as they flipped, spun, and moved with incredible energy. A small crowd cheered and clapped, and for the first time since she arrived, Tolu smiled. At a small cafe, she ordered her first American coffee. The rich, bitter taste surprised her, but she liked it. She sat by the window, watching New Yorkers rush past, each person chasing something, money, success, or maybe just their next appointment. She wandered into Times Square, where the giant digital screens lit up the night like daylight. The air buzzed with excitement, tourists taking selfies, street performers juggling fire, and the non-stop movement of the crowd. She stood there, letting the energy of the city sink in. One evening, her father's assistant took her to try New York-style pizza. It was nothing like the fancy meals she had back home, greasy, cheesy, and messy. But it was hot and delicious, and she found herself enjoying every bite. Each experience made New York feel more real, more exciting, more like a place where anything was possible. Then, the day came. Her first day at Crestwood Academy. As the car pulled up to the massive iron gates of the prestigious school, Tolu took a deep breath. Here, no one knew her as President Adiwale's daughter. Here, she would have to stand on her own. "Are you ready, my dear?" Mrs. Olawale, her father's assistant, asked. She had been sent to look after Tolu while she was in the US. "Yes," Tolu said, though her heart was beating fast. She walked into the school's grand entrance and looked around. The students wore their crisp school uniforms, but it was the designer bags they carried that stood out. Expensive perfumes filled the air. Some of them turned to stare at her, their eyes lingering on her simple braids and plain backpack. Crestwood Academy was a place of wealth and influence. But what they didn't know was that Tolu came from more power than they could ever imagine. Tolu walked into her first class, holding her notebook tightly. The room was full of chatter, but as soon as she stepped inside, the noise faded. She felt their eyes on her, curious, judging, amused. Ignoring them, she took a deep breath and moved toward an empty seat at the back. Before she could sit down, a sharp voice stopped her. "That seat is taken." Tolu looked up and saw a tall, blonde girl with piercing blue eyes standing in front of her. The girl's smug smile made it clear. She wasn't just any student. She was someone who expected to be obeyed. "Oh, sorry," Tolu said, quickly standing up. The girl didn't reply. Instead, she gave Tolu a slow, mocking smile before turning back to her friends, who were watching as if it were entertainment. "The new girl doesn't know the rules yet," one of them whispered loudly. Tolu clenched her jaw but stayed quiet. She found another seat in the corner and sat down, pretending not to hear their laughter. The blonde girl turned to her group. Anyway, like I was saying, my dad is taking me to Paris for fall break. We're staying at the Ritz, of course. Madison, you're so lucky, another girl gushed. Madison. So that was her name. Talou kept her eyes on her notebook, but she could feel the weight of the whispers around her. Madison glanced at her now and then, the others following suit, their eyes lingering. She probably got in on a scholarship, one girl muttered, her voice loud enough for Talou to hear. Yeah, definitely. Look at her shoes, another whispered, clearly looking down at Talou's simple black flats. Talou tried to ignore them, but the sting of their judgment was impossible to shake. She looked down at her shoes, nothing fancy, just practical. In a place like this, everything was measured by status, and she felt painfully out of place. When the teacher finally walked in, the whispers stopped, but Talou knew it wasn't over. This was just the beginning. By lunchtime, Talou could already feel the weight of the school's silent judgment, the stares, the whispers. She entered the cafeteria, grabbed a tray, and looked around for an empty seat. Most tables were full of students laughing and chatting like they had known each other forever. Then, she spotted a table near the back and headed toward it. Just as she was about to sit down, a voice called out, "Hey, new girl." Talou turned. Madison Carter stood in the middle of a group, arms crossed, a cruel smile on her lips. "Welcome to Crestwood," Madison said, her voice sweet but fake. "I'm Madison Carter. My father owns half the real estate in this city, so you could say I run things around here." Talou nodded, uninterested in whatever game Madison was playing. "And you are?" Madison pressed, tilting her head. "Talou," she answered calmly. Madison's blue eyes flickered with amusement. "No last name." "Adiwale," Talou added. "So, where are you from, new girl?" "Nigeria," Talou replied, meeting her gaze. Madison's eyes widened slightly before she burst into fake laughter. "Oh, that makes sense. I've seen those commercials. For just $1 a day, you can save a child in Africa." The table erupted with laughter. Madison exchanged a smirk with her friends. "So mysterious. Let me guess, you're on a scholarship." The girls giggled. Talou felt her jaw tighten but stayed quiet. "Oh, come on," Madison continued. "You don't look like you belong here. No offense, but Crestwood isn't really your kind of place." "You don't know anything about me," Talou said calmly. Madison raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting a response. "Oh, but I will. See, Crestwood has a way of sorting people. And trust me, we know exactly where you fit." With that, she turned on her heel, leaving Talou standing there, her heart pounding. She had only been at Crestwood for an hour, and already, the battle lines had been drawn. The next morning, as soon as Talou stepped into the hallway, she felt the stares. Students huddled in small groups, sneaking glances at her before whispering behind their hands. Some even laughed as she walked past. She didn't need to guess what was happening. By the time she reached her locker, a boy was already leaning against it, arms crossed. "Have you checked your phone?" he asked. Talou frowned. "Why?" The boy sighed and pulled out his phone, scrolling for a second before turning the screen toward her. Talou's stomach twisted at what she saw. A post from one of Madison's friends had gone viral on the school's social media page. "Meet Talou, Crestwood's newest charity case. Fresh from Africa, straight out of poverty. Maybe we should start a fundraiser to help her buy some real clothes." Below the post were hundreds of laughing emojis and cruel comments. Talou felt her face burn. This was worse than she had thought. The boy lowered his phone. "I'm sorry. Madison and her friends do this to anyone they think doesn't belong here." By lunchtime, the tension in the cafeteria was thick. As Talou carried her tray toward an empty table, conversations hushed, followed by quiet laughter. She knew why. Madison's cruel post had spread like wildfire. She kept her head high and focused on her food. If she acted like the whispers didn't bother her, maybe they would lose interest. But Madison wasn't done. Just as Talou was about to take a bite, a shadow loomed over her. "Oh look, it's our little African princess," Madison said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Enjoying your meal, charity case." A few students laughed. "Hello." Madison waved a hand in front of Talou's face. "You're in my seat." Talou ignored her. Madison's smile faded. "Did you hear me?" Talou sighed and looked up. Madison stood over her, arms crossed, her expression cold and expectant. Behind her, her clique watched, smirking like they were waiting for a show. "This is an empty table," Tolu said calmly. Madison let out a dramatic sigh. Right. And I sit here every day. So, move. The boy from earlier shifted uncomfortably nearby. Come on, Madison. There are plenty of other tables. Madison's sharp gaze snapped to him. Oh, look, the charity case has a friend. The girls behind her giggled. I'm not moving, Tolu said, her voice steady. The cafeteria went dead silent. No one stood up to Madison, not ever. For a second, Madison just stared at her, as if she couldn't believe someone had dared to say no. Then, slowly, she smiled. Fine, she said sweetly. But if you want to sit here, you should at least hold onto your lunch properly. Before Tolu could react, Madison's hand shot out, flipping Tolu's tray. The plate of pasta and juice spilled across the table and onto Tolu's lap. Gasps and laughter erupted across the cafeteria. Tolu froze, her entire body tensing as the cold drink soaked into her clothes. Madison stepped back, laughing as if she had just pulled off the greatest joke in history. Oops, she said, fake innocence in her voice. Guess accidents happen. Tolu gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady herself. Every part of her wanted to react, to say something, to do something, but she knew that was exactly what Madison wanted. Then, a sharp voice cut through the noise. What is going on here? The cafeteria fell silent. Miss Reese, the assistant principal, stood in the doorway, her sharp eyes scanning the scene. She glanced at Tolu's ruined clothes, then at Madison's smirking friends. Who did this? A tense pause. Tolu looked at Madison, who tilted her head, feigning innocence. Then, she glanced at the boy. He looked like he wanted to speak, but something held him back. Miss Reese's gaze landed on Tolu. Well, Tolu hesitated. If she told the truth, she would become even more of a target. If she stayed silent, Madison would win. After a long moment, she took a deep breath and said quietly, "It was an accident." Miss Reese exhaled sharply. "All right. Someone clean this up. Tolu, go to the office to change your clothes." As Tolu stood, she heard Madison whisper, "Smart choice, new girl." Tolu walked through the halls of Crestwood Academy, her uniform still faintly stained from the cafeteria incident. She could hear the whispers, see the amused glances, but she kept moving. Back in Nigeria, her father always told her, true strength isn't about who throws the first punch, but who stands tallest when the fight is over. And Tolu wasn't about to fall. She stepped into the girls' restroom and locked herself in a stall. Leaning against the door, she inhaled deeply, pushing down the emotions bubbling inside her. She clenched her fists. Back home, no one would have dared humiliate her like this. But hey, she was just an unknown girl they thought was weak, a nobody they could laugh at. Taking a deep breath, she changed into the spare uniform the office had given her. As she buttoned the shirt, she thought about what had just happened. She could have spoken up. She could have exposed Madison in front of Miss Reese. But would it have changed anything? When she finally stepped out of the restroom, the boy from earlier was waiting for her near the lockers. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" Tolu forced a small smile. "I'm fine." He frowned. "You didn't have to cover for her. Everyone saw what happened." "And what would that have changed?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. He hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe nothing. But Madison gets away with everything because no one ever stands up to her." Tolu sighed. She knew he was right. But she wasn't ready to fight this battle. Not yet. Then, she looked at him. "Thank you for standing up for me. I'm Tolu." He smiled. "I know. Tolu Adewale." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm Daniel. Daniel Dawson." He pushed his glasses up. Daniel Dawson. The first real friend she would make at Crestwood Academy. That evening, Tolu barely touched her dinner. The cafeteria incident replayed in her mind. The laughter, the humiliation, Madison's cruel smirk. She sat at the dining table in her family's penthouse apartment, pushing her food around her plate. The aroma of jollof rice, grilled chicken, and fried plantains, her favorite meal, did little to lift her spirits. Mrs. Olawale, her father's assistant, watched her closely. "Tolu, you've barely eaten." "I'm not hungry," Tolu murmured. Then, her phone buzzed. A video call from home. She hesitated before answering. The moment the screen lit up, her father, President Bola Adewale, appeared, seated in his grand office. His strong, familiar face softened when he saw her. "My daughter," he said warmly. "How is America treating you?" Tolu swallowed, forcing a smile. "It's fine, Papa." He studied her carefully. That does not sound convincing. She hesitated. For a brief second, she wanted to tell him everything. The way Madison treated her, how the students assumed she was poor, how alone she felt. But she knew what he would do. One call, and the school would know who she really was. But that wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want respect because of her father. She wanted to earn it. It's just different, she finally said. But I'm handling it. Her father nodded slowly. Good. I did not raise a weak daughter. She straightened. You didn't. Remember who you are, Tolu, he said firmly. You are not defined by what people think of you. Strength is not in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. His words settled deep in her chest. I will remember, Papa, she said. As the call ended, Tolu felt something shift inside her. She wasn't just a girl from Nigeria. She was Tolu Adewale, daughter of a president. And no one, especially not Madison, was going to break her. The next morning, Tolu walked into school with renewed determination. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Strength is not in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. She had promised herself she wouldn't let Madison get to her. But by lunchtime, that promise was put to the test. Because then came the prank. When she opened her locker before her next class, a pile of old, tattered clothes tumbled out. Laughter erupted down the hallway. Pinned to her locker was a note. For the poor scholarship girl. Welcome to America. Tolu froze. A sharp, burning humiliation spread through her chest. Her fingers clenched around the locker door. Across the hall, Madison leaned against the lockers, arms crossed, watching with a satisfied smirk. Oops, she said, pretending to be surprised. Looks like someone made a donation just for you. Tolu's hands curled into fists. For the first time, she felt the deep, undeniable urge to fight back, not just with words, but with action. But she took a deep breath. She wouldn't give them the reaction they wanted. Without a word, she bent down, picked up the clothes, and shoved them into the trash. Then, she turned and walked away, her head held high. Behind her, the laughter faded. They had expected her to cry, to yell, to break. But she hadn't. And as she walked to class, she knew one thing for certain. This had to end. And she would be the one to end it. That night, Tolu lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The humiliation from earlier still burned inside her. But it wasn't just anger she felt. It was something deeper, resolve. She couldn't keep ignoring Madison's bullying. If she did, it would only get worse. But she also couldn't let her father fight this battle for her. She had to win on her own terms. Tolu picked up her phone and scrolled through the school's website, scanning its policies and student code of conduct. Crestwood Academy had a strict anti-bullying policy, but from what she had seen, rules meant nothing when students like Madison controlled the social scene. Then, an idea formed in her mind. Madison ruled the school because she controlled the narrative. She bullied people openly, knowing no one would challenge her. But what if Tolu exposed her? What if she turned the entire school against her? Tolu sat up, determination settling in her chest. If Madison wanted to play dirty, Tolu would beat her at her own game, without breaking a single rule. The next morning, Tolu walked into school with quiet confidence. Madison and her clique were by their usual lockers, laughing like they owned the place. When Madison spotted her, she smirked. Oh, look who's back. Charity case. Tolu just smiled. Good morning, Madison. That was it. No anger. No fear. Just a calm, unshaken response. She saw the flicker of confusion in Madison's eyes. Good. As Tolu walked past, she noticed Daniel watching from a distance. He caught up to her in the hallway. Okay, he said, lowering his voice. What's going on? Yesterday, you looked like you were ready to explode, and now you're smiling. Tolu's lips curved slightly. Let's just say, Madison's reign is about to end. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. And how exactly are you planning to do that? Tolu gave him a knowing look. You'll see. She wasn't going to react emotionally anymore. She was going to be strategic. And by the time she was done, Madison Carter wouldn't know what hit her. Tolu spent the next 2 days carefully setting her plan in motion. She started by discreetly recording conversations. Daniel helped, pretending to take notes on his phone while capturing audio whenever Madison and her friends mocked Tolu. She also paid attention to the way they treated other students, pushing a quiet boy in the hallway, spreading a cruel rumor about a girl's family, laughing at a freshman's stutter. Crestwood Academy had a reputation to uphold. It was prestigious, expensive, and prided itself on its zero-tolerance policies. If Madison and her clique were exposed as bullies, not just to students, but to teachers and parents, it would shake the school's entire social structure. The final step of the plan: the school's upcoming charity assembly. Every semester, Crestwood hosted a big event where students showcased leadership and kindness. This year, Madison had been chosen as the event's student speaker. Perfect. Toulouse spent the evening before the assembly editing the recordings, selecting the worst moments, Madison laughing at a student's weight, calling someone pathetic, and, of course, the infamous cafeteria incident where she spilled Toulouse's lunch. Then, she uploaded them to an anonymous social media account and scheduled the videos to go live at the exact moment Madison stepped on stage. By morning, Crestwood Academy would never see Madison the same way again. The morning of the charity assembly was electric with excitement. Students filled the grand auditorium, teachers took their seats, and the principal, Mr. Callahan, gave his usual speech about leadership and integrity. Toulouse sat calmly in the crowd, her phone in her lap. Beside her, Daniel looked tense. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered. "Trust me," Toulouse murmured back. On stage, Madison walked up to the podium, flashing her signature, practiced smile. Dressed in an elegant blazer and skirt, she looked every bit the model student. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice oozing confidence. "At Crestwood Academy, we believe in kindness, in lifting each other up." A loud ding interrupted her. Then another, and another. A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Students started checking their phones. Then, the first gasp. "Oh my God. Did you see this? She actually said that." Toulouse leaned back in her seat, watching as chaos unfolded. The scheduled posts had gone live, each one revealing a different side of Madison. Her voice filled the auditorium through dozens of phone speakers. "You're actually useless. Why are you even at this school? Fat, ugly, and still showing up every day like people want to see that. Oops, looks like the poor girl lost her lunch." Cue laughter in the background. Madison's confident smile faltered. "What's going on?" she stammered. From the side of the stage, Mr. Callahan looked down at his phone, his expression turning to stone. Teachers whispered to each other, and students began whispering not in admiration, but in judgment. "Madison is a bully. She said all this. And she's up there talking about kindness? What a joke." Madison's face turned pale as she realized what was happening. "Who did this?" she shrieked. "Who posted these lies?" Toulouse stood quietly and walked toward the exit, satisfied. She didn't need to say anything. The school had seen the truth. Daniel hurried after her, whispering, "I think you just ended Madison Carter." Toulouse didn't look back. "No," she said simply. "She ended herself." By lunchtime, Crestwood Academy was in complete chaos. The videos had spread like wildfire. Some students were furious, while others laughed at the irony. Madison Carter, the school's queen bee, had been exposed as the biggest bully of them all. Madison was immediately called to the principal's office. Mr. Callahan looked like he was about to explode. His face was red with anger as he paced behind his desk. Within an hour, Madison's parents arrived, their faces tight with embarrassment. Madison broke down in tears. She tried to shift the blame, claiming she had been set up, but Mr. Callahan wasn't fooled. "Enough," he said sternly. "We have more than enough proof of your behavior, Madison. This school has a zero-tolerance policy, and you will face the consequences." Her punishment was swift. Banned from all school events for the rest of the semester. Removed from the Student Leadership Council, a title she had flaunted for years. Madison's reign was over. As she left the office, her usual confidence was gone. Students whispered as she walked by, some smirking, others shaking their heads. Toulouse watched from a distance. She didn't smile or celebrate. She had never wanted revenge, only justice. And justice had been served. The next day at school felt different. For the first time since Toulouse arrived, no one whispered about her or made fun of her. She ate her lunch in peace, without anyone mocking or laughing at her. The whole school felt calm for the first time. And Madison? She was nowhere to be seen. Her usual seat in the cafeteria was empty. Even her friends had left her, too scared to be dragged down with her. A week later, Toulouse walked into Crestwood Academy, expecting another normal day. But as soon as she stepped into the hallway, she noticed something strange. People were staring at her, whispering. Daniel rushed up to her, holding his phone. "Toulouse, you need to see this." She took the phone, her heart pounding. On the screen was an article from a major news website. Daughter of Nigerian president attends Crestwood Academy in secret. Her breath caught in her throat. The article revealed everything: who her father was, why she had come to America, and even details about her time at Crestwood. "How did they find out?" she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "No idea. But now, everyone knows." Toulouse slowly looked around. The students who had once mocked her or ignored her were now staring at her with wide eyes. "She's the daughter of a president. Why didn't she tell anyone? Wait, that means she's rich, right?" Some of Madison's old friends, the same ones who had laughed at Toulouse, suddenly looked uncomfortable. Some even looked guilty. Then, the crowd parted, and Madison appeared. Her face was unreadable. The girl she had mocked, the charity case she had bullied, wasn't just anyone. She was the daughter of one of the most powerful men in Africa. The silence was heavy. Finally, Madison scoffed, crossing her arms. "So what? You think being the daughter of some president changes anything?" She let out a forced laugh. "Newsflash, this is America. No one cares about some African politician." A voice cut through the crowd. "Actually, Madison, people do care." It was Olivia, one of Madison's old friends. She stepped forward, her phone in hand. "I just looked up President Bola Adiwale. He's one of the wealthiest and most influential leaders in Africa. His family is internationally known." A few students nodded in agreement, their eyes shifting between Toulouse and Madison. Daniel smirked. "Yeah, and let's not forget that Nigeria is a major player in global politics. Unlike your family, Madison, hers actually matters on the world stage." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Madison's face turned red. Toulouse stayed calm. She didn't need to prove anything. She simply met Madison's glare and said, "You treated me like I was nothing because you thought I was poor. And now that you know the truth, you don't know what to do with yourself." Madison clenched her fists. "This isn't over," she hissed before storming out. The crowd erupted into excited whispers. Students who had once laughed at Toulouse's expense now looked at her with admiration, even awe. Daniel grinned. That was legendary. By the end of the day, nearly everyone at Crestwood Academy knew the truth. Toulouse Adiwale wasn't just a regular student. She was the daughter of the Nigerian president, a girl with wealth, power, and international recognition. And suddenly, everything changed. Students who had once ignored her now went out of their way to greet her in the hallways. Some even apologized for laughing at Madison's jokes. Even some of Madison's former friends came to apologize, now hoping to be her best friends. As for Madison, she was nowhere to be seen. Her absence was proof of how badly she had lost. The queen bee had been dethroned, and now the school was looking for someone new to follow. That evening, Toulouse walked into the grand estate her father had secured for her stay in the US. She was surprised to see her father, President Bola Adiwale, sitting in the study, reading reports. He looked up as she entered. "I heard about what happened today," he said with a proud smile. "I am proud of you, my daughter." Toulouse smiled. "Thank you, Dad. I think I finally understand what you meant about knowing my worth." President Adiwale nodded. "When you know who you are, no one can take your power away." Toulouse felt his words settle deep in her heart. She had come to Crestwood Academy as an outsider, a target. But now, she had found her place, not because of her last name, but because she had refused to let anyone define her. She had faced cruelty and risen above it. And no one, not even Madison Carter, could take that away from her. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more captivating stories.